Why she chose her ex over you. Hi guys, my name is Christine. I'm a dating, relationship and personal development coach, and today I'm talking about why she chose her ex over you. So this is like a crazily common thing that I found with my clients sometimes. So there's been clients that I've had that have basically got in contact with me because they were dating someone, and then this person that they were dating started to lose interest. And it turns out sometimes that they actually got back with their ex, and their ex came back into the picture. I remember this specific client, they said to me that the girl that they were talking to and had been dating sent them a message one day saying, basically, my ex has come back and they want to be with me, and I don't think I can continue seeing you anymore because I'm feeling kind of weird about it. So their ex came back into the picture. And usually, and this is exactly what happened with this person, they went back to the ex. They didn't stay with the new person, my client, who they were dating. So why does this happen? So there's something that I talk about, which is called an emotional bank account, right? And we all have these emotional bank accounts with people. So for your parents, you probably have a very high emotional bank account. So that means if a random stranger off the street asked you for help, and then one of your parents came up to ask you for help, you would help your parents. You wouldn't help the stranger. Especially if there was kind of like an ultimatum, like you could only help your parents or you could help this person, this random stranger. You would help your parents, right? It's generally the rule what would happen. Obviously, it depends on a lot of things, like perhaps you might not have a good relationship with your parents, I don't know. But generally, most people would do more for their parents than they would for a stranger off the street if they had to choose between the two. So we all have these emotional bank accounts with people. And the reason why someone may choose their ex over you is because they simply just have a higher emotional bank account with the ex because they've spent more time with them. It makes sense that they would go back to the ex who they may have spent years with, as opposed to you who they may have only just gone out on a couple of dates with and only just started talking to. It makes sense that they would have more emotions invested in that person. And sometimes that's all it takes for someone to go back to their ex. The fact that their ex has come back into the picture, they're feeling a bit more weird about it, they're thinking that they're kind of looking at the relationship with rose-colored glasses, maybe thinking about all the good times. And perhaps, they always wanted to get back with them in the first place anyway. Perhaps that person, that ex, dumped them, and then that they started dating you. And then the ex came back and said, I made a mistake, and then they go back to their ex. So basically all this means is that they just weren't emotionally ready to find someone new. And perhaps they shouldn't even have started dating anyone new. Perhaps they shouldn't have even got involved with you if there was still a possibility that the ex could come back, or they still were not over their ex. Because generally, if people are not over their ex, they will go back to the ex if the ex comes back. No matter how many great dates they've had with you. Like, you could have had amazing dates. You could have had, really fun time. They could have really enjoyed themselves. You could have, done lots of smooching and making out, and, everything was going great and things were looking like it was progressing towards a relationship potentially. But if they're still not over their ex and they've still got a higher emotional bank account with their ex, then they're going to go back to the ex. You have to be over, like really over your ex to be able to start dating someone new. You have to be really ready. So even if the ex did come back, you would be like, no way, right? Because I know that with all of my exes, right? When I started dating my wife, I knew that if my exes ever came back into the picture, I'd be like, no way, why would I ever go back there? Because perhaps they haven't yet got to the point where they feel like they can find someone better than their ex. Sometimes that's the case. Because I knew at that stage, I knew that I could find someone better than my ex, and there's no way I would ever go back to an ex from that point on, from that period of my life. I knew that I would never do that. There have been times in the past where I have gone back to an ex, but that was at a point where I hadn't really got to that point yet, where I was like, no way, ever again, kind of thing. So that's what they need to get to. They need to get to that point where they're at that, no way am I ever going to go back to them. But a lot of people aren't at that point. So basically what this could have really been is more like a rebound thing. So that's another reason why they gone back to the ex, because they were just still not over that ex. And the thing is as well is that the ex is now probably really, if their ex is back in the picture and they're trying to get them back, then they're doing everything. They're probably putting their best foot forward. They're doing basically everything they can to get back with them. And perhaps if you've slipped up a few times, like if you've over pursued a couple of times, if you've acted more, let's say, weak than the ex has been acting, then it might be the case that they may have continued with you, but because you acted so weak and the ex was acting more strong, they got more attracted to the ex as opposed to you. But generally, it doesn't really matter that much. If they've got a higher emotional bank account with the ex, they're going to go back to the ex no matter what. So basically what they were having with you was more like a rebound thing. So I highly recommend that you watch this video on rebound relationships and why they rarely work. And I go into more detail about those kinds of things. So the next thing I want to talk about is why you should never really take it personally. Now, it might have been the case that you acted more weak than what the ex did, and that's why she chose the ex over you. But most of the time, it's nothing personal and it's nothing that you actually did. Like most of the time, it's simply because they were just still emotionally more invested in the ex than you. They'd spent more time with the ex, and it just makes more sense in that way that they would pick the ex over you because they've spent more time with them, they have more memories with them, they have more emotions like kind of attached to them, as opposed to you, who they may have only dated a couple of times. So the best thing for you to do is to not take it personally. Just realize and understand that the reason why they went back to the ex is probably because more often than not, because they just have stronger emotions attached to the ex and they weren't emotionally ready to get over them and to start something new with you. It's all about them pretty much most of the time when they go back to an ex. It's got nothing really to do with you. So there's no reason at all why you should take it personally. So don't take it personally. Don't get mad at them. Don't get angry at them. Yeah, sure, it probably would have been best if they hadn't have tried to get into a relationship or started something new with someone else, started dating someone new until they were over their ex. They should have got over their ex first. They should have done that. They should have got to that point where they were like, there's no way in hell am I going to get back to their ex, and then started dating. But instead they didn't do that. Perhaps they'd only broken up with their ex for a little while. It might have only been just a month, or perhaps it was only just a couple of weeks. We don't know. Or you might know, but the point is that you don't know basically what's really going on in someone else's life at the beginning of a courtship. You don't know basically their background. You don't know that. I mean, that might be a good idea actually when you're on a date with someone new. Ask them, oh, when did your last relationship end? And that might give you a good indicator as to whether or not this is going to happen again to you, right? So ask them that, when was the last time, when did you break up with your previous partner? That might be a good question. Obviously, you don't want to dwell on it too long because it might bring up negative emotions. But it's something good that you can fish out if you are trying to figure out whether or not this person might go back to an ex if the ex comes back into the picture. So if they say anything to you like, oh, it was a couple of weeks ago I broke up with them, or it was like a month ago, you need to be kind of a bit careful with those people who have just come out of a relationship. Whereas if they said, oh, it was like 6 months ago, or it was a year ago, or anything above that, the last time they were in a relationship, that's a better sign. That's a better sign that they've got over it, that they've emotionally healed, and that the ex isn't still lingering in the picture. And if they are, then obviously they would have got back with them already if that had been the case. So be very, very careful and observant, and try not to get too emotionally attached to those kinds of girls that you date, or guys, depending on who you are, that have only just got out of a relationship. Be very, very careful with that, because the ex might still be in the picture. The ex might come back, right? And it might be the case that they're not over their ex, so they might bring a lot of baggage, a lot of emotional turmoil with them. Because usually when we break up with someone, we need to heal and get over those past mistakes. We need to get over those patterns. Otherwise, we may start treating the new person like how we treated the ex. So you need to be very careful, because basically what happens when you get into a relationship, you kind of get into some kind of like hypnotic rhythm where the way that you talk to each other, if you've got any like nagging habits, if you go straight from one relationship to another, you're bringing all of those bad old habits into a new one, which is why you need that space and time in between relationships where you kind of like pull those weeds out and become like a new person. Because if you bring all that old baggage into a new relationship, you're just going to have exactly the same relationship. And if that relationship ended, then obviously the trajectory of this new relationship is that it's going to end, because you're just doing the same thing, but just in a new relationship with a new person. So you kind of need to, pick out those things, figure out what happened in the relationship, learn from those mistakes, and then that kind of thing won't happen. And then that new relationship will be a lot more easier and new and fulfilling. But when it comes to someone who has chosen their ex over you, please do not take it personally. It's just that they just weren't emotionally ready yet to start a new relationship, and they still had that big emotional bank account emotional investment into their ex, and that's why they chose them over you. If you would like to get in touch with me personally and you would like coaching with me, then please go to www.christineloveridge.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall talk to you again very soon. Goodbye, guys.